the World Massage Conference.
Hello and welcome to World Massage Conference. I'm Melanie Hayden. I will be your host for this class on intelligent deep tissue massage. No pain, all gain with Eric Stephenson. If you are joining us for the live classes, remember to jump into the chat room located just to the right of the broadcast screen there and take advantage of the opportunity to ask Eric questions during the live event and share your feedback with the other therapists from around the world. As a full registrant, when you're taking this class, remember to open the quiz link and review the question before the class starts and take your quiz right away to get your certificate of completion. Eric will be in the chat room for this live class to answer as many of your questions as possible. Just before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our global sponsor, Massage Envy. Massage Envy is a community of caregivers committed to helping people feel their best. They believe that therapeutic massage and customized skincare are an integral part of the well-being journey. If you share this belief, they'd like to get to know you better. Learn more at massageenvy.com/careers. And thank you to our education partner. Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals provides an extensive array of member benefits and exceptional liability insurance. Visit abmp.com to discover why over 80,000 massage and bodywork professionals have chosen ABMP as their professional association. Thank you to our daily sponsors, Massage and Bodywork Magazine, Bon Vital, and BioFreeze. Intelligent deep tissue massage, no pain, all gain. Performing deeper work can often leave us exhausted and in pain rather than invigorated and ready to do the things we love to do in our free time. In this class, you'll discover an effective approach for performing deeper, intent work without harming the client or yourself. You'll learn to bring the four intelligences, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual creative, into your massage approach. We'll explore the therapeutic relationship and the research behind its importance, as well as important findings about the science of pain. You'll get valuable takeaways, whether you're new to the profession or have been practicing for years. I'd like to introduce our instructor, Eric Stephenson. Eric specializes in deep tissue massage that doesn't harm the therapist or the client. His workshops focus on saving your hands with his no thumbs approach and core body mechanics that help prolong your career. Eric serves as a director of education for Elements Therapeutic Massage, the second largest provider in the United States. He has presented at AMTA National and National Conventions, the International Spa Association, and Aesthetic Spa International shows, as well as internationally. Eric is a regular contributor to Massage Magazine. In his spare time, he works on becoming the 5th member of Van Halen. Welcome, Eric. It's wonderful to have you back teaching a really great and important workshop with us.
Thank you so much, Melanie. It's great to be here once again at the World Massage Conference, and I want to welcome all of our viewers internationally as well as here in the United States, and just thanks for having me again.
It's fabulous to have you here, Eric. I'm really excited that you're going to be showing us some great slides and talking about the techniques, and then showing us some of your new video.
Yeah, so today's webinar will contain some of the newest video that we just shot for our educational offering called Intelligent Deep Tissue Massage. It's over 4 hours of content on 2 DVDs, and we'll be talking about how to order that at the end of the webinar. Really excited about it. It's all of the content that I've been working on over the last 15 years, and it's really special to me. So all the clips that you'll be seeing from today's webinar are actually directly from that video.
Fabulous. Let's get started, Eric.
Great. Well, as Melanie said, my name is Eric Stephenson, and I live in Delray Beach, Florida. I own a company called iMassage along with Deborah Kerner, and we discovered in 2006 a statistic that really bothered us, and that was about 60,000 students went to massage school in 2005. And that same year, about 50,000 practitioners left the profession. So we looked at that and we said, how can we put together a company whose higher purpose in life is really to help extend therapists' career and really make a difference and an impact in the attrition rates? So that's basically what we've been doing over the last 10 years. I've been traveling all over the world, and whether I'm in Thailand or whether I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, or Orlando, therapists have very similar struggles and very similar success stories. So much of what you're going to see here today comes directly from our approach that we've been perfecting over the last 10 to 15 years, and how to teach therapists to extend their careers and actually feel good and have lots of energy when they go home from a full day of work. I've also worked really closely with Elements Massage over the last 7 years, one of the largest providers of massage in the United States. We have over 240 locations, as well as over 4,400 massage therapists that work with us. I'm excited to announce that on January 1st, 2018, I'm going to become the Vice President of Culture and Education for Elements. We're headquartered in Denver, and it's really exciting for me to be working with a system so large that has such an impact on the health and well-being of the world. Just a little bit about what we're going to do today. We're going to be talking about intelligent deep tissue massage and looking at some learning objectives. We're going to be able to explain the concept of exactly what we're talking about with intelligent deep tissue massage. We're going to find out about the amygdala, and we're going to describe the process of managing the client's amygdala and the fight or flight response when performing deeper massage. We're going to be able to demonstrate core body mechanics in a standing and seated position, and I've got some great video content for this that you'll be seeing me demonstrate in real time. And finally, what I call my no thumbs deep tissue approach. So how to do all these techniques without using your thumbs. You can sort of check in with your thumbs right now and see how they're feeling. Many times therapists will complain of pain in either their carpal metacarpal joint, or their brachial plexus, or their thenar eminence, and much of that dysfunction can happen and does happen when we use our thumbs to do deeper intent work. So this is the roadmap for today, what we're basically going to be exploring as learning objectives at the end of the hour. Let's talk about why intelligent deep tissue massage. So over the course of my career, traveling and working with therapists in a variety of settings, whether it's in a clinic or continuing education setting or in a spa, these are some of the complaints that I've heard therapists talk about when it comes to the physicality of performing massage. So whether their thumbs are killing them, or their primary education didn't focus on body mechanics, ergonomics, and self-care, or whether they're just simply exhausted after giving 3 or 4 massages every day, and they have to go home and pop an Advil with a Corona on the couch to feel better, which is never a good career strategy. These are things that I hear over and over again. So today's intelligent deep tissue massage approach is really about how to work with your body, work with your resources in a way that's not going to harm you or the client. And then finally, there's a big portion of the population that has actually received a deep tissue massage and actually had pain imposed in their body. So this will sound like I was bruised at the end of a session, or I came out with more pain than I went into the massage with. And a lot of those people say, I'm never, ever going to receive another deep tissue massage again. Ida Rolf, who is the godmother of deep tissue massage, used to like to say, it's not how deep you go, it's how you go deep. And that's very, very important when it comes to working with another human being on a massage table, not working on them. So this approach to intelligent deep tissue massage is combining all of our intelligences into another intelligent system to help that person move towards homeostasis and not further into pain. The most recent research that I've seen around attrition levels in the United States comes from the 2014 entry-level analysis project. So you can see, even as recently as 2014, that there's a very troubling trend towards therapists leaving the profession. So this is the kind of impact that I want to have in the world, is to help therapists really extend their careers and to have an effect on these attrition numbers. So the approach of intelligent deep tissue massage really is to take this intelligence that we have with our mental intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our physical intelligence, and our spiritual/creative intelligence, and bring that into another intelligent system. So when I think about massage and body work, I think about all of this intelligence that we as therapists have, and all of these intelligence are working at the same time. we're taking that intelligence and we're putting it into another intelligent system, which is, of course, the client. The client's body is going to make sense of that intelligence, and it's going to process it and hopefully move them closer to homeostasis and healing. In order to fully explore this, I've got a little video clip that I'd like to show you of myself and iMassage's co-owner, Deborah Kerner, talking directly about what this intelligence is. And let's just take a quick look at this video.
There are 4 components of your model of intelligent massage. Can you explain that? Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the concept of intelligent massage really takes on 4 different components. The first is mental. So we have to have an understanding of anatomy, physiology. We have to have an understanding of musculature, fascia, of bones, of all of the systems of the body. So that's all of the mental space that preoccupies your hands when you're touching muscle layers, or you're touching connective tissue, and your intention is coming through your hands. And the mental part of that is knowing what you're touching and touching it in a meaningful way. The emotional component has to do with really recognizing your own emotions and recognizing another's emotions and not getting those two confused. So oftentimes in a therapeutic alliance or a therapeutic relationship, we can get enmeshed with the other person. We don't really know where our feelings begin and the client's feelings end. And we're not really sure how to manage those emotions a lot of times. So it's really recognizing that we have a myriad of emotions. The client has a myriad of emotions. And the way that we deal with those emotions is really important. Not just client to therapist, but also internally, our own emotions. And being emotionally intelligent means managing your anger as well as managing your joy in an appropriate way, depending on the setting. Physical intelligence really has to do with using your resources optimally. So this might include stellar body mechanics and ergonomics and knowing how many massages that you can perform in a day before your quality really diminishes. It means taking care of your physical body. It means taking care of everything that goes into giving a phenomenal massage on the physical side of things. And finally, what we call the creative or the spiritual component of intelligence. Any art form requires you to first learn a form. So whether you're learning guitar or whether you're learning how to play tennis, you have to learn the fundamentals. You have to learn the form of the art. And at some point you can let go of that form and your creative spirit can really come through. So when we're teaching massage, it's not that we want to create a bunch of robots doing exactly what I'm doing, but we really want to make sure that the person is taking on the fundamentals, taking on those core forms, and then letting their creativity and their true spirit run through that.
So you can tell by me articulating the approach of intelligent deep tissue massage that we have all of these different intelligences, right? So this mental intelligence, this idea of muscles, bones, the systems of the body. We have the emotional intelligence, which really is how do I work with this other human being and their emotional system, their feelings, their thoughts, their fears. How do I work physically with not just the client, but of course my own body. So this is the body mechanics, the ergonomics, right? The hand position. And then finally, this creative spiritual side of things. So as an instructor, my passion is really to teach certain concepts that come alive for the therapist. So I'm not out trying to create a bunch of Eric robots that look just like me when I'm performing massage, but there should be some similarity in how I'm doing the work and demonstrating the work, and then how that work is going to translate to you as the therapist. I remember when I first started to learn how to play guitar, I wanted to sound just like Van Halen, and I had almost perfected it. And I remember walking into my guitar teacher's studio and playing him a Van Halen song, and he looked at me and he said, "That's really not very good, Eric." And I thought, well, what do you mean? I sound just like Van Halen. And he said to me, "I don't want you to sound just like Van Halen. I want you to sound like Eric. I want you to take what you've learned from various guitar players, but I want you to process this out through your own creativity and come up with your unique sound." And I've never forgotten that. I think as a body worker, that's very important that we demonstrate certain core concepts and certain learning objectives, but in the end, it comes out looking and sounding and feeling like us. At the heart of all these intelligence really is this concept of presence. I talk about therapeutic presence all the time in my workshops, and I honestly think that this is the single biggest component of massage. How many of you out there have ever had a massage from someone that wasn't present? And if you've had a massage from someone that wasn't present, I'd like you to just maybe go over to the chat box and you can write a few words, maybe 1 or 2 words about what that experience was like to receive a massage from a therapist that is not present. For me, presence really breaks down to, is the person paying attention to me? Are they attentive to me? And are they able to convey that sense of presence through their actions, their touch, their body language, their tone of voice? And usually what I find is that if therapists are not present, that it's usually a deal breaker for the client. In other words, most clients are not going to go back to someone that they feel like wasn't really attentive to their needs and wasn't demonstrating the ability to work with them, was just basically going through the process. So in this intelligent deep tissue model, what we're looking to do is really come back to this idea of presence. If I asked you how present you were in the last massage that you gave yesterday or the day before, what would you say? Were you at a level 10, which means you were completely dialed in, you were completely present? Or were you at a level 1 or 3? Maybe you were a little distracted. Maybe you had a sick child at home. Maybe you had other things on your mind. And then where have you been the last month or the last 6 months in terms of your therapeutic presence? How can you get more present? How can you bring more of this sense of being here into your life? And it's a really good question to ask ourselves really every day as we step into the treatment room, that all means become a blunt instrument if they don't have a living spirit behind them. That was one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein. So how is it that we can bring this sense of presence into everything that we do? As it turns out, a lot of the research is pointing to the benefits of massage coming from something called therapeutic alliance. And this therapeutic alliance is the way that we establish safety and trust with a client when they come into our practice. I would say that in the research that I've done, that actually this therapeutic alliance and that connection between the therapist and the client will trump technique almost every single time. In other words, that it looks like most of the benefit from massage is actually coming from the characteristics of this relationship, such as empathy, respect, and trust. Now, we know from some of the recent pain research as well that pain is not an input into the body that we once thought it was. In other words, if you step on a nail, there aren't pain receptors in your foot that alert your spinal cord and your brain to go into a pain signal. What we know now is instead of pain being an input into the body, that pain is actually an output from the brain. In other words, there's all sorts of factors associated with whether or not I go into a pain cycle. There's obviously the physicality of the wound, the actual damage to the tissue, but there's the emotional component of it too. So in other words, how do I feel about what just happened? What are my expectations about going into pain? And then there's also the sociology of it. So what is my support network like around the pain? Am I encouraged with hope, or am I discouraged? Am I in a supportive family environment or therapeutic environment or not? So we know from some of the recent pain research that there's a lot more going on in the brain. And I like to say when you're touching the surface of the skin, that you're literally touching the surface of the brain. This can go on to explain why I can apply the same amount of pressure to 2 clients, and for one client, it will be absolutely too much pressure, and the next person may not even feel the pressure because their brain is processing it in a different way. If we look at the human being's fight or flight nervous system, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to this when we're giving massage. So in other words, everyone has a fight or flight, what we call the sympathetic nervous system. The opposite of that, of course, would be the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the same radar that would be on in downtown New York City at 4 in the morning. So you've just gone out, you've had a great time, and now you're going back to your car trying to find it, and it's dark. and there are shadowy figures lurking around, and your heart rate quickens, and your blood pressure quickens, and all the blood rushes to your core. And in a moment's notice, if you needed to, you could run or you could fight, or you could actually go into a third response, which is to just completely freeze up. When we think about creating this intelligent atmosphere for doing deep tissue massage, it's important to acknowledge that everything is important. So in other words, when the client comes in to get a massage for a first time, their biggest fear, according to the International Spa Association research, is exposure. So we know that that's one of their biggest fears coming in to get a massage. So we can do things intentionally to calm their fears. We can also make sure that we're really present upon our greeting, so that if someone is nervous the first time coming in to get a massage, that we're making eye contact with them, that we're saying their name, that we're smiling, that we're using our nonverbal communication that could be anywhere from 60 to 80% of our communication to the client. As we begin to get them to feel more comfortable and create that safe environment, then they will drop from this fight or flight nervous system into hopefully a parasympathetic, more relaxed state. But that's not always the case. Sometimes I'll go get a massage and I'll walk into a studio or I'll walk into a clinic, and the person behind the front desk is more interested in what's going on behind their computer than saying hello to me. And maybe I go into the restroom and it's not clean. Maybe the therapist comes out to greet me and I can tell that they're really not present. Maybe that 15 minutes worth of footwork that I requested isn't delivered during the session. And instead of dropping into a relaxed state, there's a little part of my brain called the amygdala that starts to light up. So the amygdala is in charge of your fight or flight response. So this is that little part of your brain that lights up when you feel threatened. So in other words, if I'm driving down the highway and it's about 6:30 in the morning, the sun is coming up, I got a little James Taylor on the radio, I've got my Starbucks coffee next to me, and I'm in my rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system, I'm feeling good. And then all of a sudden a car comes up on the right-hand lane in front of me at 95 miles an hour, cuts in front of me. The first thing that's going to happen is my amygdala is going to light up. So if that car cuts in front of me and causes me to feel threatened or endangered, then my amygdala is going to light up and send a signal to my nervous system. That signal is going to say, do you want to run? Do you want to fight? Or do you want to freeze? And if you're a good New Yorker like I am, what do? You step on the gas pedal and you find yourself chasing after the person. It's not a conscious mind movement, so this is something that is usually a conditioned response. Some of us would step on the brake to try to get away from the crazy person, and then others of us would just completely freeze up and say, oh my God, I almost just died. That car almost just killed me. The same thing can happen on a massage table. So if the therapist is not using their intelligences, is not really working with the person on the table and managing the client's sympathetic nervous system, then you can actually have someone on the table who never fully relaxes. The whole massage, their amygdala is paying attention because it feels threatened. One of the biggest ways this happens in a deep tissue massage is, of course, with applied pressure. So applied pressure is usually the culprit in a lot of what I would say imposed pain in a massage. This is why it's so important during a massage to check in about pressure within the first 5 minutes of a session. And instead of just simply saying, how's that pressure? The intelligent deep tissue massage approach is to say, in terms of pressure, would you like more, less, or is this just about right? So something along those lines so that the client can actually make a choice. It's amazing to me how many times I get massage and the therapist won't check in one single time about the applied pressure. And because the person on the table is in a compromised position, they are in a power differential with their clothes off, it's very difficult for a lot of people to actually state what their needs are unless they're prompted by the therapist. So pressure is one of the ways that the amygdala can really lighten up. And today we're obviously talking about deep tissue massage, but it also can happen with draping. If your draping is not safe, then what you'll notice is the client, right, is probably not going to feel comfortable. And this is something that therapists need to take back into our practice, is make sure that we're creating that safety and trust, that therapeutic alliance, by really paying attention to applied pressure, checking in about that, having impeccable draping, safe draping, making sure that we're not talking too much about ourselves during the session, even making sure that our hands aren't freezing cold, because someone can go from a complete relaxed parasympathetic state with a nice table warmer on and starting to relax into a therapist touching them with really cold hands, and that can throw them into a sympathetic response too. So managing the client's amygdala is really important. The way that we do this in body work, of course, is with the breath. It's really important with the intelligent deep tissue massage approach to use the breath and realize that a really great way to go deeper with pressure, if they ask for more, is to go in on the exhalation and work with the breath cycle so that the vagus nerve is really initiated and we're not meeting resistance in the client's tissue. If we turn into the practical application of intelligent deep tissue massage, one of the things that I'm really keenly aware of when I do deeper intent work, and what I mean by deep tissue massage and the way that I'm going to define it here, is really working with intention and attention through first, second, third, sometimes fourth layer muscles, and even sometimes all the way down to the periosteum of the bone. So when we do deep intent work, vertical intent work, working with intention and attention through these layers, we're not going to use our thumbs. So I like to say in my workshops that students have entered into the no thumb zone. There's a great way of palpating tissue with your thumbs, but when it comes to actually doing the techniques, some of the research that I've seen suggests that with every pound of pressure we exert with our thumb digitally into the tissue vertically, 10 to 12 pounds of pressure can go to the carpal metacarpal joint. So what that really means is if I'm applying 5 pounds of pressure through my thumb, there's the potential of up to 60 pounds going through my carpal metacarpal joint. That's problematic not just for the joint, but that can translate all the way up to my brachial plexus, all the way up into my head and neck. So all the techniques you'll see me demonstrate here today, none of them use my thumbs, and that is why. One of the other hallmarks for doing deep tissue work is what my instructor used to like to call tiltus pedis too muchus forwardus. So many of us suffer from this kyphosis in our spine. We suffer from forward head posture. We suffer from medial rotation through the shoulders. And the intelligent deep tissue massage approach really begins with this concept of presence that I was talking about. So when you're present and you're paying attention to not just the client, but of course your own body, you can get really tuned into what's working and what's not working for you. So if I walk into a workshop and I watch a room of 40, 50, 60 therapists work, what I'll notice is that probably about 80 to 90% of them are suffering from this condition called tiltus pedis too muchus forwardus. And it's a really great way to think about how you're working. So what does your posture look like when you're working in the massage room? If you were to call up an image in your mind of what you look like, what does your posture look like? Where is your head? Where are your arms? And as therapists, we get really attuned to staring down at everything that we're doing, so looking intently with our eyes, when in actuality, we all have excellent palpation skills, and we could actually see with our hands. And in the process of seeing with our hands, we could bring our head out of the work, align our spine, and take a load of pressure off our spine. So the research that I've seen around forward head posture actually shows that for every inch your zygomatic arch, which is your cheekbone, comes forward of your sternoclavicular joint, you load your erector spinae up with an extra 10 pounds per inch of weight. So here you'll see in this picture, I've probably got about 4 inches of forward head posture. That's about 40 pounds of pressure that's going down my spine. And that can really take a toll on the energy level that I'm going to have at the end of my day, how I'm going to feel in my body. What you'll see me demonstrate here with some of the video is a standing in a seated position where we're keenly aware of the position of our spine. And instead of moving from the shoulder girdle, we're actually going to initiate from a place called center or our core and see with our hands rather than looking down at everything that we're doing. In this next photo, you can really see this. So this is a technique to the lower back, and if I just teach technique, if I just teach a technique approach and I don't talk about the body mechanics aspect of it, most of the therapists in the room would look like the gentleman on the left. So you can see there that it looks like from the waist down I've got good body mechanics. But when you come above the waist, you'll see that I immediately go into that kyphotic curve through my spine. My head comes forward, and my shoulder starts to medially rotate. And this touch comes primarily from a place of effort through the shoulder. In other words, my lower body is really not initiated here. If you jump over to the picture on the right, you'll see that I've shortened my stance a little bit. I've aligned my spine. My shoulder girdle actually relaxes, and you can actually see my upper trapezius and my levator scapula relax. And I bring my head out of the work. The arm extends long, and this touch comes from a place of center or my body weight, originating closer to my hips than my shoulder. And I would bet my house and my car and all my guitars that the touch on the right-hand side of the screen is going to feel better for Louise, who happens to be the client, as well as myself. This touch will feel better than the touch on the left. And I've seen this thousands of times in workshops that I've taught. I'll go over and I'll adjust the therapist 3 or 4 inches. I'll put them in the right place in gravity, and the person on the table will start nodding their head. And what they're really saying is that touch feels better. And the therapist will usually report that, yes, it feels better for them as well. So this alignment is really, really important when we're doing intelligent deep tissue massage. This concept of presence is the foundation of everything. After we're present, we're going to use really good body mechanics and ergonomics to make sure that as we're taking care of this other person, we're taking care of ourselves. And then we're going to act with the utmost professionalism. So checking in about pressure, creating that therapeutic alliance, using all of our intelligences to work with this person rather than on them. When a therapist is present, they're using their resources optimally, and they're the highest professional, then the knowledge and the technique just flows out of them. So I thought it might be fun to initially show an intelligent deep tissue massage technique to the tibialis anterior on the anterior lower extremity here, and show just 3 different approaches working into this muscle, and then we'll sort of go backwards from there and talk a little bit about the body mechanics and the approach. So let's go ahead and watch this intelligent deep tissue massage technique to the anterior lower extremity.
Let's work at addressing the anterior tibialis muscle. So many times in my workshops, I watch therapists do this old faithful technique, and I still see this demonstrated a lot, even in the instructional world. So that's a deep sort of lunge, and we're using our thumbs to do this work. And this is a technique in neuromuscular massage called stripping of the anterior tibialis. We want to get away from that. So how do we actually work this muscle without using our thumbs? I'm going to show you 3 ways to do that. The first is to address this muscle by taking your hand that's closest to the head, the superior hand, you're going to come just above the patella onto the femur. Now, if someone has some external rotation, like Albert does here, it's nice because this hand will actually right that rotation. As I bring that into a neutral position, I can align my feet, so I'm in that vertical stance up onto the balls of my feet, and I find the tibial tuberosity, so the bony knee. I take my soft open fist just below that bony knee. I'm going to come up onto the balls of my feet, and I'm going to drop gently at 90 degrees right into this muscle. So the force is coming gently down at 90 degrees. If I back up too far, then I'll end up coming into that distortion of my posture. So I want to maintain that spinal alignment. The head comes up. Instead of looking down at my hands, because I know where they are, I can look up at his face. Now I can do a little bit of static pressure here and just hold this as sort of a pinning, or my hand can splay and just sort of cross spread across this muscle. If you wanted to cover more surface area, you could actually take 2 open fists. You can come up onto the balls of your feet And you could drop gently down in this direction with 2 open fists, cover more surface area. And then you could also add that active and passive movement. So the passive movement would be to hook in with 1 fist, come up and over onto the balls of your feet, to sink gently down, and then to just passively move the ankle back and forth. You could do the same technique with some active movement. So I could hook in both open fists, and now Albert's going to move slowly back and forth with that ankle. As far as it's comfortable, it doesn't need to be a big movement, and of course if that's not comfortable for him, we'd ask him not to do that. We can see which movement he likes better. Do you like the active or the passive movement better, Albert?
I think the passive.
The passive. So this is something I would make note of in my soap notes, that Albert liked passive movement. So the next time I could sort of see if there's been any change, or just sort of move into that passive movement without having to check in with him so much.
So you can see from that video that there's many approaches that you can use into the tissue of the tibialis anterior other than your thumbs. And this is really important because many of those techniques can be duplicated in other areas of the body. And that's what you'll see from this approach, that once you embrace the body mechanic, once you embrace the hand position and the overall approach, that you can modify this all over the body. Let's take a look now at specifically how to work with the body mechanic in a standing position in a horizontal plane. And you'll see me demonstrate this in this next video.
Starting with the feet, we imagine that we have big metal spikes on the bottom of our feet, or deep roots like an oak tree. So this is what it's like to be grounded. Grounding really is just paying attention to the sensation underneath your feet. And everything begins in each stance at the feet, whether in a standing position, seated, or even kneeling, which we'll demonstrate as well. So as your feet are comfortable, you're just going to soften your knees. Let your shoulders relax, let your jaw relax, let your eyes soften, all up through your shoulder girdle, just letting everything relax. Then you're going to plug into a place called your center. So in some cultures, they call this the dantian. Some cultures, they might call it the hara. Here in the West, we call it center, and it's right below your belly button. So this is your GPS system. This part of your body should be directing into the stroke, no matter what you're doing. This part of the body is how you're going to keep your spine aligned, your pelvis aligned, all the way through the crown of your head. So we're always paying attention to center. In that stance, plugging into your center, your knees are soft, you're connected in with your feet, you're going to take a healthy step forward with one leg. Now there should be enough width in your stance to mirror the width of your hips. So it's not like you're walking on a tightrope here. You've got enough width in your stance to mirror the width of your hips, and your back foot is going to turn out about 30 degrees. So if 90 were at a right angle, about a third of that, so that your ASIS on each side is pointing forward. Now notice what happens when I turn that back foot out a little bit too much. As that back foot comes out, my center now starts to splay over to the right, and if I try to come forward, then that distortion can happen through my pelvis all the way through the crown of the head. By bringing that foot back to 30 degrees, I'm able to keep my hips straight. Now this first stance, the horizontal, comes right out of the practice of Tai Chi. And if you've ever practiced Tai Chi or Qigong, you've seen a movement similar to this. So what we're doing is we're taking the orientation from center and dropping it into our front leg. We're moving in a horizontal plane. So just like the ocean, there's a crash of the waves in, and then there's a gathering up. It's the same thing with this movement. We're asking our center to sit into our front leg, almost like we're being pulled from a tow rope, into that front leg so that the knee goes just to the big toe and stops. Now at this point, your spine should be straight, your head should be up, And probably about 75% of your weight is in your front leg. Maybe 25-30% is in your back leg. If I push up off the ground and come back to 50-50, just letting my arms settle in and loosening up, I begin to just play with that movement of going forward and back. Now I can look down so that my proprioception really gets a sense of where this is in my body. Remember, you don't want your patella to go much past your big toe, or else you'll start to stress your patellar tendon. And listen to your body here. Your body will know where that sweet spot is. After you get that sweet spot, you're going to line your spine, bring your head up, and just move back and forth, shoulders open and empty, chin up out of the chest.
So with this horizontal body mechanic, or what we can refer to as working horizontally into the client's tissue, we see that we shift our body weight into the front leg. If your body weight is not shifting into the front leg, then your shoulders are doing all the work. Again, we look for spinal alignment. We look for long, strong lines through our arms. And now let's see how we can demonstrate this technique working with the anterior deltoid in this horizontal body mechanic.
The anterior deltoid is a major medial rotator of the arm, so it feels really good to have this muscle worked with and opened up. The muscle attaches up here on the glenohumeral joint and comes down to the deltoid tuberosity, which is about halfway down the humerus. It's a little further down than most people think it is, and you can actually feel that, and it's usually a little bit tender on a lot of people. So we're going to go in with some sensitivity here. The body mechanic is a 70-30 stance. I'm facing down towards her feet. I've got her arm back in external rotation, and I'm going to begin at 90 degrees. So I can either shake thumb to thumb or I can grab her wrist. The tool is the soft open fist. So the soft open fist is going to mold right into that anterior deltoid. So I'm not landing on the glenohumeral joint at all. That feels really uncomfortable to land on bone. So you want to make sure that soft fist lands gently off the bone. The arm extends and I come in at 45 degrees. So this is not a 90-degree drop. 90 degrees is a little too intense for most people, and plus you may pinch the skin. As I land with that open fist, I'm going to peel the deltoid back toward the table like it's a potato. So I'm peeling in and I'm taking that back toward the table. Notice how my body weight drops into that front leg. Always transmitting into the front leg. If not, it's all coming from my shoulders. Now in the next pass, I'm going to hook in. I'm gently going to do the same thing with my right hand, and then this hand is passively going to drop the arm into internal rotation toward the table. This takes a little bit of practice. It's almost like rubbing your tummy and patting your head, or rubbing your head and patting your tummy, however that goes. So it takes a little bit of practice to get these movements. One hand is pushing away, the other hand is coming back toward you. Like most of the techniques that we've done, I'm going to ask her to participate. So she's going to bring her arm at 90 degrees. Now I'm going to take both open fists and cover the entire muscle from the shoulder all the way down to the deltoid tuberosity. I'm going to hook in, and then I'm going to ask Stacy to slowly bring her arm in internal rotation down towards the massage table. As she does that, I slowly work my fists back, peeling around towards the posterior deltoid. And then you can check in with your client again and see which technique they prefer. About half the people like active, about half of the people like passive. Go figure.
With the intelligent deep tissue massage approach, we also pay attention to how we do work in a seated position. Many times when I'm teaching workshops, I'll watch closely at how therapists are working in a seated position, and many times they're not working optimally. So one of the approaches and hallmarks of this work is to actually imagine yourself getting the most miles per gallon of your energy as possible. So there's ways to do massage like you're driving a Prius and you're going to be getting 65 miles a gallon. And then there's actually ways to do massage where you'll get much less miles per gallon, and it's more like driving a Cadillac. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have enough energy to do the things in your life that you love to do. So in this video, I'm going to share how to do work optimally in a seated position, and then we'll see me demonstrate that technique in a little bit onto the body with a specific technique.
Many years ago, I attended a Feldenkrais workshop, and the instructor actually taught us how to get up out of a chair correctly. Up until that point, the only way I'd known how to get out of a chair was watching my pop. That's how my pop got out of a chair. And apparently that wasn't optimal. So here's the optimal way to get out of a chair. So let's say you have a lower back injury. The physical therapist is going to get a hold of you and recommend that you protect your lower back getting up out of a chair. And here's what that looks like. So they're going to ask you to sit your ischial tuberosities right up on the edge of the chair and to drop one knee down. Now, as that knee goes down towards the floor, what that enables you to do is to move into what we know as a posterior and an anterior tilt. So in other words, your ASIS on each side is going to be going posterior and anterior. Now, after they teach someone how to do this movement for a while and not initiating from the shoulders, they want them to protect their lower back by keeping the spine nice and straight, going from a posterior tilt to an anterior tilt and then pushing gracefully up out of the chair. So I saw that movement. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've been doing seated massage for so long with both feet out in front of me. And I imagined most of the work that I was doing was coming from my shoulder, whether I was at the feet, whether I was at the head and neck, or whether I was somewhere else on the body. And since that day, I started to drop the knee down and actually move from my center in a seated position. So instead of working at the feet with both feet out in front of me, I would drop one leg down, keep my spine straight, and actually move into the technique from a different orientation. At the head and neck, the same thing. Instead of doing big sweeping strokes coming from my shoulders with that kyphosis in my spine, I began to drop that leg down and move in from my pelvis in that anterior and posterior tilt. And what I noticed was not only was the quality of touch increasing based on my client's feedback, but my body felt so much better. I was able to get more pressure with less tension through my shoulders. Now, the less tension you have in your shoulders, the less tension you have in your arms as a practitioner, the more sensitive you're going to be to the client's tissue. And the more sensitive you're going to be to picking up on contraction in places that you actually want to feel what's going on in the tissue. So being really relaxed is of utmost importance.
So hopefully you were trying that along at home. You can do it on any chair. It's much easier on your stool in your practice to get a sense of this. So we make sure that the ischial tuberosities are up against the chair or the stool. We drop one knee around the side of the stool and we move from center. In this next video, I'm going to share one of my favorite techniques, which is to the extensors of the forearm in a seated position, so you can see how this is done alongside the body in a really, really easy way.
Working into the arms, one of the most common techniques I see therapists do is this classic neuromuscular stripping of the extensor muscles with, of course, our friends, the thumbs. We want to replace that. So I'm going to show you how to work into this group of muscles with your forearm. I'm going to put Stacy's arm flush with the table and grab my stool. Now, I should mention that you could also do this technique in standing if you want to work really hard, but I like to take that tension off my legs from my upper body weight by sitting down. Now, her arm is flush against the table. I've got a little bit of lotion on my elbow here, so just a little something on my elbow. I'm going to get into that seated body mechanic. So my inside knee is dropped, my outside knee is up. I'm up on the edge of the stool with my ischial tuberosities, and I have those 2 anchor points down through the balls of my feet. I'm going to land like a swan just above her styloid processes here, right in between the 2 bones, dropping my body weight in toward the table and slowly tilting my pelvis forward as I come in between the radial and ulnar side of her forearm. So I'm right in the middle of her extensor muscles here. As I begin to go up, I can slide, keeping my back nice and straight, and taking that up over the elbow joint on that radial side, that common attachment on the radial side of the arm. Over the elbow joint, I just lighten up onto the humerus. The second pass, I might go a little deeper, and instead of supinating my hand, I want to pronate my hand so that my wrist is just relaxed here. The first third of the forearm doesn't have much tissue there. It's mostly tendinous. So you want to make sure that you're actually applying the pressure up in the belly of the muscles. Here I'll check in with Stacy. So in terms of pressure, would you like more, less, or is this just about right, Stacy?
This feels fine.
Okay. So this is just about right for her. After a few passes, what you could do is if you needed more pressure, you'd have them take a deep breath, and then you would simply elevate that wrist to come more onto the point of the elbow. And I'll lighten up here so we don't go any deeper. But if you did need to go deeper, you could see how that vector changes, and automatically the depth changes without any more effort.
Not only can you do this work with the arms, as I just demonstrated in that video, but one of my favorite techniques as well, and probably this is my favoritist, if that's a word, my most favorite technique of all time. And this is to the plantar feet. So you'll see me demonstrate this in a unique way off of the table, which is a fun way to do this. You can also do this same technique in a traditional prone position with the feet up in the bolster. But I encourage you to try this fun little way of working the plantar feet with the open fist in a seated position. Let's watch that video now.
So this is working the plantar foot in a little bit different way. You can see I've got Stacy's foot off the end of the table here, and that should be comfortable without jamming into the edge of the table. So they should be able to plantar flex comfortably. And I'm in a seated position. I want to make sure that I've got one knee up and one knee dropped. The tool that I'm going to use is my open fist. So the fingers are pointing back towards me. Now I need to make sure I'm not crossing over here and doing the work from my shoulder. So my center should be just a little bit to the other side of my hand, such that there's a straight line between my shoulder joint all the way down through my open fist. Now this is going to come from that posterior and anterior tilt into the bottom of the foot. Again, we don't want to do this technique with a lot of lotion or cream on our hands. We want to come in and see how much natural hydration is at the foot. I like to take the other hand and support right at my elbow. I get long and strong, so if you get too close, your arm will start to bend and your shoulder will elevate. So remember, we want that length. We want the arms to be long and strong. Any flex in that fire hose is going to back all that pressure back up towards its source. So in order for that body weight to come through, that open, empty arm, we have to be back. I come into a posterior tilt, into an anterior tilt, and I just gently let my fist fall right into the bottom of her foot. Now, there's no need to look down at my hand. Everyone has really good proprioception. You can actually do this work by bringing your head up and looking globally up at the breath cycle to see if it's expanding. And see with your hands. As we get deeper, just like we did in standing, we're going to use the fish hook or that proximal knuckle to go right down the plantar fascia in the center of the foot. I can reinforce with the other fingers. Tilting forward from my pelvis. Take that from the calcaneus down to the ball of the foot, or you could continue even down into the metatarsals. If your shoulder has any sort of compromise, you can actually pin your elbow into your hip and change the orientation of the fish hook to now get some support from the hip as you come forward. Again, probably one of the most therapeutic techniques I've ever learned, and I try to incorporate this in most every massage that I do.
And then finally, working into the upper trapezius, one of the areas that a lot of therapists may tend towards using their thumbs. I'd like to show this open fist technique and using your proximal middle knuckle like it's your thumb. So I like to say that your proximal middle knuckle is the new thumb. You can get really good at using this tool, and many clients won't be able to tell if it is your thumb or the knuckle. They'll actually say things like, "What are you using right now? What is that? Is that your thumb?" It will obviously never be as sensitive as your thumb, but with a little bit of practice, you'll get really good at palpating through this tool. And let's take a watch right now as I work up into the upper trapezius with that proximal middle knuckle.
Working into the upper trap, we're going to turn the head into lateral rotation to one side. Now I'm going to be scooping up into Albert's trapezius here, and I'm going to demonstrate this on both sides so you can see this. I've got one knee drop down, and I'm right on the ridge of his trapezius. I'll use just a little bit of cream on my hand, especially on the back of my open fist. Now as I scoop in with my open fist, I'm going to use this tool first with the flat part of my fist, then I'm going to come on to the proximal middle knuckle as I find some contraction perhaps up in his trap ridge. You can anchor your elbow into your hip or you can have an extended arm. Either way will work. As you sink forward, your pelvis is tilting anteriorly and you're taking this all the way up from the shoulder towards the suboccipitals and the occipital ridge. Now, if you want to get really crafty with this stroke, you can actually turn your stool in a direction that enables you to sort of use it in a half moon, like this. So the arm always stays straight. My center keeps pointing in the direction of the stroke, and I'm just using those points of my feet to wheel all the way around and take that up into his hairline. As I find points of contraction, I can sit in with that proximal knuckle and apply pressure in the direction of the stroke. Now in this position, I could sit comfortably for a long time. If I happen to use my thumbs in here, of course, they would fatigue probably after about 30 seconds. All of the force is coming from my center here, not coming from my shoulders. Coming to the other side of the table, we'll turn the head into lateral rotation. On this side, we're going to drop the outside knee. We're going to be scooping the hand in. You'll see that the fingers are coming in towards those transverse vertebrae. As I come around, I'm keeping this hand nice and straight, making my way up into the suboccipitals. You could also work from the suboccipitals down toward the shoulder. And that would look something like this. So again, your center always wants to point in the direction of the stroke. As I scoop in, I keep that arm long and strong. This time I lock that elbow into my hip and take this down the trapezius. Now it becomes obvious to me as I'm working with Albert that there's some contraction that I feel through his trap ridge, so I can go back and explore those areas with that proximal knuckle, aligning my center right in the direction of the stroke. And using that to address an area of the body that usually has a lot of contraction in it.
What I'd like to do now is just wrap up today's webinar by talking a little bit about learning and the organic process of that. So Chinese bamboo is a really interesting plant. The first year that you plant Chinese bamboo, nothing happens. You water it, you talk nice to it, and nothing happens. The second year, you come out into your garden and you hope that you see the bamboo sprout. And of course, the second year, after talking nice to it, watering it, letting the sun shine down on it, nothing happens. In fact, the third and the fourth year is the same. The plant just doesn't grow. So you may be tempted in year 4 to come out and say, you know what, I don't think the bamboo is ever going to grow, and you end up planting some annuals over it. And of course, those flowers come up almost immediately, and you have a sense of satisfaction. But what you didn't know is right below the surface, the bamboo was waiting for its day. It was churning, and it was struggling right underneath the soil. And on year 5, a miracle happens. This plant can actually shoot out of the ground and grow up to 90 feet in 6 weeks. It can literally overtake an entire forest, and it's one of the most invasive plants on the planet. I love this analogy when it comes to learning new approaches, because some of the techniques that you've seen me demonstrate here today, they look simple, but in fact, they're not really simple. They're not really easy. They take repetition and literally hundreds, if not thousands of times to practice them before you can own them and truly feel comfortable. So when you're going into working with some of these techniques, I like to keep the analogy of the Chinese bamboo in the front of your mind. It may take a while, but know that one day with a little bit of practice and a lot of intention and attention, you can truly transform the way that you approach deep tissue massage. If you're interested in the approach of intelligent deep tissue massage, I'm offering a conference special until December 1st of 2017 for all the listeners. So this is over 4 hours of content that we got done filming in the spring of this year. We're just coming out with a formal release of the video. It's a 2 DVD set, and I talk in length about the client-therapeutic relationship. There's a whole section on how to create that therapeutic alliance, that safety and trust. That's the first module. There's a whole module on the core body mechanics and ergonomics in a standing, seated, and even a kneeling position in the video. So we talk at length about how to work with that, with table height, with the ergonomics and equipment in your treatment room, as well as your posture and your body mechanics. And then finally, there's over 30 of my favorite no thumbs deep tissue techniques on the video. So you'll learn how to work all throughout the body, approaches that will give you more ease, less effort, and give you a higher quality of touch that the client can feel. So this is $59.99. That includes shipping in the USA. If we're shipping to other areas of the world, it will include a shipping charge on top of that. And you can order this at our website. That is imassageinc.com. The letter I, the word massage, INC.com. Right on the homepage, there's a link to order that video. And if that's of interest to you, I think you'll find a really great value in being able to transform the way that you perform deep tissue massage. Finally, if you'd like to stay in touch with me, here's my website. I've got a bunch of free stuff on my website, and here's my email address. I really love hearing from therapists. It's one of the things that keeps me going when I'm out traveling the world. When therapists come back and tell me that they truly have transformed their practice and it has kept them practicing for much longer than they had anticipated, that really warms my heart, and it's the reason that I do what I do in the world. I want to thank you all for spending the last hour with me. I know there's lots of other things you could have been doing, but you were here investing in yourself, and my belief is that when you invest in yourself, you always win. So I want to thank all the listeners out there. And I also want to thank Melanie and everyone at the World Massage Conference headquarters for having me here again this year to share my intelligent deep tissue massage approach.
Eric, we love having you on World Massage Conference. You bring so many components into your teaching, and you said something at the beginning of the class, and that was just that really struck me. Touching the surface of the skin is touching the surface of the brain.
Yeah, so this was a quote that I originally read from an author. His name's Dean Juhan, and he wrote a book called Job's Body. I remember reading that book way back in 1997, And that sentence really jumped out at me. And now what we know from some of the most current research around pain is that this is true, that when we're touching the surface of the skin, we're literally touching the brain, and the brain is making sense of that touch, the pressure, the angle, the intent, and processing that as either helpful and meaningful or painful and something to be avoided. So it's really fascinating approach for us as therapists to always keep in mind that we have the potential to affect the deepest parts of intelligence of other human beings, and that's powerful.
It's really powerful. It is. So again, I love that you brought in the component of presence as well. That is so easy, like you said, to have gone in for a massage and you know that that practitioner is not even in the room with you and not paying any attention and not asking you, like you were saying, specific questions about pressure. Do you need more? Do you need less? Is that just right? Like really checking in and creating that safe zone. Because if that person isn't present with you, I think you lose some of your safety as well as a client.
Yeah, this is so true. And as we live in a more and more distracted world, I think clients, especially now, are seeking safe places where they can come and just be themselves. They don't have to be mom, they don't have to be dad, they don't have to be coworker. And for 60 or 90 minutes, they get to be in the presence of someone else. And that's a really powerful thing in and of itself, above and beyond everything that we do with technique in our hands. That simple power of presence is healing.
Mm-hmm. I want to just jump back to one of your slides there, the one where you're just changing your positioning a little bit. And I'd like you to talk about table height, because clearly that's going to make a difference on our posture and our ability to put ourselves in the right posture. And the other thing that I'd like you to just kind of speak to again is that changing your angle like that, which is not something I necessarily would have thought about, how that feels different to the client.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. The table height is one of the misunderstood concepts in doing deep tissue massage. So if you think about Swedish massage, for the most part, Swedish massage is a horizontal event. We're moving tissue fluids back toward the heart. So you should be able to stand in a horizontal body mechanic that I'm demonstrating and imagine going horizontally with an effleurage stroke or a petrissage stroke without wearing your shoulders as earrings, elevating your shoulder. That would mean the table's too high, and without trying to get down to the client and breaking your spinal alignment, which would mean that the table is too low. Obviously, the girth of the person, their body size is going to make a difference as you're doing this. But as we transition from Swedish, which is primarily a horizontal event, into a deep tissue massage, which is more vertical into its intent, we have to make sure that we're able to go vertically into the body without elevating our shoulders and, again, without breaking our spinal alignment. So that doesn't mean that you need to drop your table down to the lowest setting. It really means that you're working with the person on table to determine where is that sweet spot where you can imagine going vertically into their tissue and still using your resources optimally. Not many of us have electric tables. Probably about 80% of therapists are working with static tables, and that's why I give so many approaches in my work. So you'll see in the DVD that I have a lot of different approaches, because if the table height does not work in a standing position, it may work in a seated position. What you see me demonstrate here is just coming up under the balls of my feet, really dropping into that vertical alignment with my spine. And this will automatically feel better for most people, because the picture on the left, there's a lot of tension in my muscles. So in other words, my proprioception and my touch is picking up on the tension in my own body. Rather than the picture on the right, I'm relaxed. I'm going in, and now my hand is relaxing into the client's tissue and picking up on the tension in their body rather than sensing the tension in my own body. And that's one of the biggest differences in the quality of touch that the client will feel.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you for explaining that. That makes so much sense. I certainly know, after practicing for 21 years, that I have that tiltus head of too muches going on. And I know when I pop into your classes, when I see you at conferences, it is always a good reminder. And sometimes I can hear your voice when I'm in my massage room, and I can just, oh yeah, right, Eric would be telling me this, and he would be showing me this. So it does really make a big difference when we, like you said, we go out and educate ourselves. And it is a constant little reminder for us, like to just, where are we in our heads when we're in that massage room, and where is our head tilted in that massage room? So are we present to our clients, and are we present to ourselves?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'll tell you that you're doing a lot of things right if you've been practicing for 21 years, Melanie. And for myself, if I'm not thinking about being present and using my resources optimally every single stroke of every single massage, then I too fall into tilt his head is too much, as forward as dysfunction. I lose my presence. So it is a constant practice. And that's, of course, why we call it a massage practice.
Right. Awesome. Well, Eric, thanks again. Loved all the information. Love your new videos. I think that's really exciting to have that opportunity for us now to go back and practice and continue to watch those over and over again, and get together with other therapists and practice on each other. That is such a great opportunity. So thank you. I know that takes a lot of time to create those. So way to go.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to everyone watching today. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here and share this information with everybody.
Awesome. So just before we go, I would like to thank our global sponsor, Massage Envy. As a Massage Envy therapist, you put your heart and soul into helping others feel their best. You deserve a career that nurtures you as a person, an artist, and a professional. Visit massageenvy.com/careers to find a career that cares for you. Massage Envy franchise locations are independently owned and operated and are the sole employers for all positions they hire. Thank you to our education partner. Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals provides an extensive array of member benefits and exceptional liability insurance. Visit abmp.com to discover why over 80,000 massage and bodywork professionals have chosen ABMP as their professional association. Thank you to our daily sponsors, Massage and Bodywork Magazine, Bon Vital, BioFreeze, and Massage Warehouse.